In our field, when you hear an American legend, that word association always goes to Winchester. Obviously, for good reason. And in this sale, as we've said, we get to explore American history through the lens of fine and historic firearms collecting. And there's a lot of different paths we can take and opportunities that emerge. And we have a really unique one here because while we will examine essentially every iconic lever action model that Winchester produced from the 66 to the 95 in terms of lever guns, I want to concentrate on 4. And they're not embellished guns. These are working man's guns. And what do we mean by working man? These are farmers, these are ranchers, these are cowboys, these are people using these tools to put food on the table for protection and everything in between. And that's the neat part about it, because these are all benchmark examples of those. They represent those guns that were there, were rode hard, loved, cherished, put away wet, but they were tools at the end of the day, and they were well taken care of, well preserved. But it was all a tool. And we'll kind of go chronologically here. We have a fabulous, absolutely fabulous Winchester first model 1873. It's serial number 380. And the first model Winchester 1873s are, I always say archaeological because it's changing so much. The departure from the 66 to the 73 was massive in a myriad of different ways. But when you get into these early first model 1873s, you can almost learn something every time. And there's all these rules that exist, and there's always exception to the rules. And this gun falls in a really unique place. So this is serial number 380. And what's really nice about Winchesters and Colts is quantifying and qualifying rarity. And I like to be able to do that when we can. And again, there's exception to the rules. You don't want to hang on to the last number on everything. But there were 720,000 Winchester 1873s produced. There's a ton of Winchester 1873s. But the first models were serial number 1 to 31,000. And that's where you'll see some overlaps there at the end. But conventional wisdom says that there was 31,000 first model Winchester 1873s manufactured. That's 4% of the total production, right? That's the beautiful numbers. You can say how rare a true first model Winchester 1873 is, irregardless of condition, configuration, etc. All the first models are 4440, but then you get into the nuance of it. Like in Colt 1851s, you got square backs, wedge over screws. But in these first model Winchester 1873s, you have reverse rear sight. So we have the reverse rear sight on this Winchester 1873. We have what's very interesting is at serial number 350, that's the approximate idea on when this changed. You had the hand engraved serial number and model designation on the lower tang. It's Winchester 1873, hand engraved underneath it, hand engraved this serial number. Again, what we know, what's published is approximately at 350, the model designation moves to the top of the tang. So this is number 380. So now you see Winchester 1873 on the tang on this gun. Now the serial number is still hand done. Serial number 380, it's still hand engraved on the lower tang. And obviously that's pretty important. Now the raised thumbprint dust cover, you'll see essentially four variations of the first model dust cover. The raised thumbprint dust cover, conventional wisdom, what we know says 1 through 2600. So again, only the first 2600 have that raised thumbprint dust cover, and this gun has that. This gun also has enormous condition. And so framing it in time and space on that, how rare it is, 4% of 1873s are first models. Only the first 2,600 have the raised thumbprint dust cover. It's essentially what they call the version 2, type 2 serial number and model designation. This gun is the finest example that we are aware of for a first model Winchester 1873 raised thumbprint dust cover. I'm cautious when I say finest one known. It's the finest one that we're aware of. Is there another one out there under a rock or out in a collection somewhere that's unpublished? Could be, absolutely. But in terms of population report on known published examples, we believe this to be the finest example that certainly that we've ever cataloged or seen. But it fits that bill for the working man's gun, rarity, and that's why it's the first one here of your standard Winchester models. So from the 1873, I want to talk about this spectacular Winchester 1876 that's in this sale. So what Winchester was experimenting with or trying to do at the time was to obviously develop a more powerful cartridge, and so expanded the frame. They look alike, right? The 73s and the 76s to your layperson look relatively the same. Obviously, we have an enhanced frame, but they only made 69,000 Winchester 1876s. So right there, they become rare, right? There's essentially twice as many as they did first model Winchester 1873. So only 69,000 Winchester 1876s were manufactured. Really interestingly and relevant to the subject that we're talking about is the model of 1876 was unveiled at the Philadelphia Centennial in 1876. Hence, you'll hear the Winchester 1876 called the Centennial Model. So there's your reference point there. And it's always a nice point to make as we're exploring and celebrating the indomitable American spirit in the 250 is, during the Philadelphia Centennial, we talk about this a lot and you hear about it a lot. During the Philadelphia Centennial, literally at the same time, you have this explosion of culture and technology, and it's happening right here in the United States. And 2,500 miles away, Custer and his men are absolutely slaughtered at the Battle of Little Bighorn. And here Winchester is unveiling, their second version of a great lever action, or their third variation of a wonderful lever action rifle. And what are we doing? I suppose the federal government doesn't do anything quickly. But it's another benchmark example of it. Again, when we talk about it's a standard Winchester 1876. It's a 45-60, but it's a plain gun. It also happens to be rather minty. Provenance-wise, formerly of the legendary Mac McCroskey collection. And when I think about Winchester 1876s, my mind always goes to Theodore Roosevelt when he moved out to the Dakota Territories after his wife and mother famously died on the same day. And there's that beautiful photograph of him, buckskin outfit, big old Tiffany Bowie knife in his belt, and he's holding that monstrous Winchester 1876. My mind always goes there when I think about a Winchester 1876, but another benchmark in the sale here. Now, again, move forward. So we'll go to the Winchester Model 1886. Its origins are the same as the 76. Winchester's trying to develop a more powerful and potent cartridge, and they turned to John Moses Browning and his design, which is the Winchester Model 1886. This gun's in 40-82. It's a benchmark example of a standard gun. And when I think of 1886s, Winchester made approximately 170,000 Winchester 1886s. I always we sold serial number 1 Winchester 1886 from Albee to Lawton Captor of Geronimo. We also sold the very, very famous number 1 engraved gold and platinum 50 Express Winchester 1886 carved wood out of the McCroskey collection for well over $1 million. And that's the example that we have curated and that's in this 250 sale is a standard minty example of the model of 1886. And then from the 1886, we have this absolutely sensational Winchester 1894, of which Winchester produced over 7.5 million. Model 1894s or Model 94s. It's America's rifle, if you will, America's deer rifle. There's nothing more iconic than a Winchester 1894 that generations of boys and men grew up taking into the field. And again, every man's gun. It was the truck gun, it was the protector gun. And we have the wonderful Ranger Joaquin Jackson 94 later on in the sale that we can talk about. But this example, again, it's a benchmark condition, which is, of course, the standard of which similar things should be judged. This thing it's minty. It's a little bit more highly optioned than the others. Matte barrel, straight grip, deluxe takedown, extra lightweight, but it's blue and walnut, right? It's steel and walnut. It's not a gold inlaid gun. It's not an engraved gun. This is a working man's gun, but it's in elite benchmark condition. And that's this really unique opportunity we wanted to talk about. These 4 wonderful Winchesters that we don't often get the opportunity to discuss. But these are all, again, they represent the highest level of your standard grade, iconic Winchester lever guns. And hey, listen, there's so much more, and there's some other Winchesters in the sale. Of course, we have a 66, of course, we have a 95, but you're gonna have to flip those pages of the catalog to see what those are about. This sale is gonna be absolutely spectacular. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and that's the whole point, that's the whole intent. It's our opportunity to explore the 250th anniversary United States of America through our lens, which we believe is so uniquely and distinctly American, through the Second Amendment, the indomitable American spirit, what that means for the American system of manufacturing and beyond. Firearms are ingrained into the spirit of every American, like it, love it, or not, but that's what it is. And this sale, June 27th, if you're one of our people, it's not gonna get any better or more fun than what's gonna happen June 27th at 5 p.m. here in Bedford, Texas. It's gonna be an evening sale. It's gonna be a blast. Hope to see you then.